It is 12:59. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica, and it's Pecorine Day at Bridgestone Arena tonight as the Predators host the Dallas Stars, and they will hang the number 35 in the rafters for the legendary goaltender who retired at the end of last season. Rene will be the first player to have his number retired in franchise history. Puck drop tonight is at 7:30. Of course, the Preds will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Nissan Stadium for the NHL Stadium Series on Saturday night. Titans signed an outside linebacker on Wednesday in Justin Lawler, who has 19 games of NFL experience with the LA Rams after being drafted in 2018 in the 7th round out of SMU. Big game tonight for the Belmont Bruins on the hardwood and on the road at number 19 Murray State. Belmont has won 10 in a row, while the Racers still unbeaten in OVC play. Tip-off tonight is at 8 p.m. on ESPNU. Women's hoops, the Lady Vols back in action. Number 16 Tennessee at home hosting Mississippi State. It is a 5:30 tip-off. And the Vanderbilt women also at home hosting number 15 Florida at Memorial Gym. Tip-off at 5:30. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. What's up? Happy rainy Thursday to you. Turn around, don't drown. Isn't that what they say? I've been seeing all these people tweet pictures of like a van floating away in a river.
A van?
Yes. Nashville weather. I think it was a picture of theirs this morning. They tweeted it. Somebody sent them, and it's just a van floating down the river. Well,
It didn't push a button and didn't have its stilts and then it could float and have a
I don't think that's what Chris Farley meant.
That's where we're supposed to be at right now.
here's the thing, man. If you look at where this van is floating down the river, you can see the road go down into the water.
Was that your road?
It was not my road. No, man. I never buy a house in the low area.
Oh.
I'm cognizant
the
of
low
that.
area.
I do not do it. I can't
The
do
low
it.
area.
Can't do it. Won't do it.
Yeah.
If you look, though, the road goes down. So the driver of this van, I hope they're okay. If you look just to the side of this van, there's one of those black fences that people have around some of their farms around here. And you can see that the top of the fence is about 2 inches out of the water, meaning the other 4.5 feet of the fence are underwater. So let's use some landmarks or something. Like you see water and you think, I don't know how deep that is. Maybe I'll just drive through it. Look just off to the side of the road for street signs. I'm from the country. Street signs.
So that's how
fences,
you're an expert, correct?
Mailboxes. And you see how far underwater they are, and then you have your answer.
Well, they didn't have that kind of time. They thought they could just go.
I'm just going to rush right on through this river
I got it.
in my van.
I know I can make it. I got this nice van.
Come on, man. Well, you ain't got no van no more.
Yeah, floodplain.
Yeah, a van is going to the salvage yard.
Floodplain, you just got to build your house up.
I don't live anywhere like that, man. I don't do it.
Hey, man, if it's some land, man, you got to find a way to put some property on there, man. So, yeah, everybody be safe out there. It's been a lot of continuous rain and flooding going on all over the place in the state. So be careful, be cautious. As the mixer just said, the mix master, who's the expert of floods there out in the rural areas.
I just know.
So the tea leaves and things you should be looking for. You just gave us a map of what we should do. You know what? I did not know half of those things on that list.
Those are things, though, man, because you're out there on the farm and you get a big rain and you're trying to get from one field to the next or whatever.
I might have been that ding dong who would have tried to ride through there, too.
You can't
make it.
Can't do it. Sometimes, man, you just got to go.
Especially if I was in a truck.
I'm gonna have to drive around 4 other acres, or I'm gonna have to drive around this other field, or I'm gonna have to go a complete other way to get to this place I'm trying to get to. Well, that's just what you got to do. That's just what you got to do.
Any other tricks of the trade? Like, let's say after you've acted in the wrong manner and started driving and decided, I'm stopping. Before you get to the point where you were forced to stop, and you go, try to back up?
My advice
would be roll your windows down?
No, my advice would be make that decision quick and then back the heck out of there.
Okay.
But the water's strong.
Yeah, no doubt. I used to use
just
water
carry
for
you
my
away.
training.
Yeah.
In the off-season, yeah, no doubt. There's no better resistance than water.
See?
Mm-hmm. Now everybody use these bands and everything. Like my band was the water. I'm running sprints down in the 4 feet area. So, that water, man, great training. Definitely not for the vans and, that's just, oh, man, be careful out there. Just
use common sense.
But even also driving where there's, puddles, that can make your car or truck, turn, as we saw yesterday, was on its side.
Yep.
Got to be careful of that because it can throw you, to a certain extent off guard. And some people panic, at the wheel. I get it. So, yeah, be safe out there. Be cautiously safe out there.
Well, like I said, I see that. Then yesterday I see a car sideways on its side on the interstate, and I'm thinking, come on, man, just use the tiniest, teeniest, idiotest bit of common sense out there. We don't want you to get hurt. We want you to listen to the show. This is all selfish reasons. If your car's floating away, you can't be in it listening to us.
Yeah, we're joking. We just want everybody to be
We just
safe.
want you to be okay. Do you guys care? Lucas is a play-by-play guy. One of these days, you're going to hear Lucas on wherever he wants to work on because he's great at it. Do you guys care who does games? Because I know this is a big topic of conversation today. Troy Aikman expected to leave sports to go to Monday Night Football. Well, they just revamped the Monday Night Football booth. Then a couple of years before that, they revamped the booth. Then a couple of years before they revamped.
Gruden was on there a while.
Gruden was on there, and Sean McVay.
And Louis Riddick and Greasy.
Yeah, and then you got the Manning Cast, which is a standalone.
It's on at the same time, which is really
on at the same time.
And they're really on the same station, to a certain extent.
No, they are. It's the same company. Do you guys – I wrote this down because I think people care who does – I'm trying to say that people care who does their college games because you grow up with that person. It's one voice usually always for football and basketball, and then sometimes baseball too. Or if you're a Lady Vols fan, Mickey Dearstone, you get used to hearing that one voice. I think people really care who does their college games, but those are like you listening on the radio.
Yeah, but that's totally different than
it's totally different than what's going down. Do people care who you care if you flip on Monday Night Football? Are you like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear what Brian Greasy is going to say tonight?
I feel like people have strong opinions about it one way or the other, right? People have strong opinions about Tony Romo and Troy Aikman and Chris Collinsworth.
People used to hate Troy Aikman.
Joe Buck.
Yeah. Oh my
gosh.
God, yeah. Joe Buck is the most weirdly polarizing broadcaster. I'd never understand.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what, man? I could say that I have been very surprised of how many people really don't like certain broadcasters.
Oh gosh.
And I learned this when I first started doing radio, it was 12 years ago. And I was just like, it really didn't matter to me. I don't know why I don't care. I'm just going to listen to what they have to say, whether I like it or don't like it. But man, people are so judgmental of the people who are broadcasting the games, especially in the pros and especially on Monday night. I was like, wow. And I think that's what drove Peyton Manning to say, I'm not doing that. Because I don't think he wants to be judged that way because everybody loves Peyton Manning. Well, now it's going to be a portion of the fan base is not going to like him now. It's just what's going to happen. So I didn't think he wanted to go down that road and say, guess what? I'm going to do it my way if y'all want me to do it.
Right. Then
and
if you want
this
me,
way. And
you
this
come
is
find
casual
me.
And this is fun.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard to critique them and say they're doing a bad job. Because it's just like everybody else can relate to it. Sitting on my couch, I get to talk to Peyton Manning and watch him and celebrities, get to talk to him. But that would be interesting, too. Add that in there. You can hire me. I'm available.
Sure.
But, and then have fun and watch them crack jokes and make fun of each other and the whole way. And you say, oh, man, that's pretty cool. You don't walk away saying, oh, man, I don't like what he said. I mean, let alone you even critiquing what he ate and stuffing his mouth during the breaks.
Yeah.
So they're making fun of him. So I think, being on Monday night, I think the people who are doing it could care less to a certain extent because as long as it matters their boss. And if you're going to pay somebody, $10, $15, $20 million to do Monday night, that just kind of comes with the territory. Everybody always talks about, professional athletes, what comes with the territory. Well, most of the guys don't understand when they get in the league what comes with the territory. So I think everybody assumes that they know. You got to remember, they're just graduating college, and then all of a sudden they're thrown into the limelight. And you assume it, and they could have all these programs, but they still don't understand how to handle questions. You're polarizing, so everything you say can be, cut in half and just changed and be manipulated. They don't know that. Well, guess what? When you're a broadcaster, you know what comes with the territory. It's not an ongoing learning process like a professional athlete. So it doesn't even bother me at all. At all. When people always ask me, I was like, I don't know. Half the time I go, well, I really am not even listening to them unless they're actually cracking jokes, really, to be honest. I want to watch the game.
Me too.
That's just me, though. I know I'm probably the minority on that. But, yeah, man, people have – I mean, that's a question. Do you care who's broadcasting Monday Night Football games? Do you have to like the person? I think that's another thing is everybody gets overlapped with you got to like somebody to enjoy their broadcast. You don't have to like them, but you can appreciate what they do. People can't separate the two. That don't mean he's still not good at his job just because you don't like a person. Yeah, I may not have liked Shannon Sharp, but I could say, hey, man, I got to respect what he does on the field. He's a good player. I don't want to hear his mouth chomping all the whole game. Just play ball. See, so you got to respect what they do. It's a tough job. And so, I half the time I probably put it on mute anyway because I'm up there doing other stuff and I just want to watch.
I'll say this. I watched a couple of minutes of the first Manning cast. I watched a couple of minutes. And it was funny, and I was smiling and laughing. And then I thought, okay, now I'm going to turn it back so I can figure out what's going on with the game. And ever since then, I watched 2 minutes of the first Manning cast. After that, I only watched the game.
Well, I'm going to flip it. My wife, who I would think is like the general public, who is not interested, all in on sports.
Right.
She was like, oh, no, she didn't know nothing about the Manning cast. I said, oh, they have Manning's on there. He's going to have such and such on there. The Rock. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, turn it to that. I want to see that. She could care less about how much she was figuring out what was going on in the game.
Sure.
She's like, oh, man, did you see Eli do that little thing when he was doing? He was dancing. See? So she was all in. Like, I don't want to watch it any other way.
Right?
I was like, what?
You also just didn't know what was going to happen. Like, there was much more of a wild card. Like, you had Marshawn Lynch on there, like,
you don't know what he was going to say, right?
Right. Eli Manning gave America the double bird in one game. So, yeah, you just didn't know what was going to happen.
Have a lot more freedom. And that's why a lot of you can be more – you have more personality on the podcast where you have to be structured, kind of like it's either like doing, news on local TV or you want to do radio in a local area. You have much more personality. We can be ourselves. Instead of structured, this is what you have to say. So I thought they duped Lou Riddick and those guys.
I did too.
Because they have to have a platform where they have to do the same thing over and over again, and they can't go outside of that box if everybody understands broadcasting. They have to be there. And I think those guys are really good. I really like Louis Riddick. But there's at times, I'm like, I don't know about that. But most of the time, I would agree.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like Troy Aikman. Just go, oh, he's biased because he was a. Well, I like Tony Romo. I like Aikman's voice, where it projects for whatever reason. It draws my attention. It's like, dang, oh, yep. But Romo, he's dissecting. You can tell he's watched plays and he understands what's about to happen. And I like all of that. So I like both of those guys. So I even like Buck.
I like Buck fine. He's been doing games for. He and I guess are similar, same age.
As in Joe Buck.
Same age as all of us.
Yeah,
Joe
like
Buck.
Oh, you thought
I like Buck Rising too.
Oh yeah, Buck. Buck Rising too.
Joe Buck has been such a presence though on network games for so long now. Even though he's, he started so young, but he's been such a presence for so long. You got him. You got Al Michaels, who's a free agent. Apparently, what is it? Amazon. Lucas that's trying to land Al Michaels, possibly. And there's speculation that maybe Joe Buck tries to get out of his contract early to just go do ESPN with Aikman. I'd be fine with that. If Lou Riddick and Steve Levy and Greasy, sorry, guys, you can analyze games on the Sports Center again.
Well, they have been solid. It's just that if you can get something better, no different than an athlete.
Oh, if you get Buck and Aikman.
Right. Tannehill's okay. But if you can get Tom Brady, we're going to move forward.
Well, I think Buck's wife works for ESPN, right?
Joe Buck's wife works for ESPN?
Michelle Beisner.
That's right, yeah. So
yes, I think he's even been in some of her stuff. They crossed the streams with him in like a report or two for her.
I could see them wanting to put those together on Monday Night Football.
Well, I would imagine if you're getting Aikman, that surely has to mean you're getting Buck. Not Buck Rising, but we have to keep saying Joe Buck.
Earlier on the Buck Rising show, I got to be in studio with those guys when I was a runner for Fox on Thursday Night Football in 2020, the Colts game in Nissan Stadium. So I was just kind of in the back doing whatever they needed to do.
In the backdrop, right.
Those guys are tight.
Yeah.
on and off the air. Those guys are close.
Well, you have to have certain type of chemistry. So when people talk about, throwing different guys together, they got to practice that to have that kind of chemistry on air once the lights click on. It's not like you just, he's good and he's good. Let's put them together.
Right.
No, they got to mesh pretty well together.
Like, I don't know how often Steve Levy and Brian Greasy hang out, but I know Joe Buck and Troy Aikman do.
Yeah.
Maybe they're hanging out right now. We got to hang out next with Dan Lust, the sports law lawyer. There's so much going on that is legal related in sports right now. We called an expert, and he will join us next. Deshaun Watson, the Dolphins. There's so much going on. We're going to hit it all
Cheerleaders.
Next. All
that'll
of
get
it.
your attention, won't it?
Cowboys.
Holla.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Taking our phone calls on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. And we will do that right now with a guy that we really love having as a guest on the show, Dan Lust. He's at Sports Law Lust, New York Law School Conduct Detrimental Podcast. And then he's on everything now. Dan, you just keep blowing up, man. Congrats on all the success, and thanks for the time today.
Always my pleasure. When I get that text from Lucas, I know I've just made it. I'm on Nashville Sports Radio, guys.
Well, hey,
man, you're swimming in much deeper waters than here in Nashville, but we always appreciate that you'll jump on with us. It means a lot, and I know our listeners are loving anytime they hear you on our station. Let's start with this. And Blaine and I were talking before the show. What a great day to have a sports lawyer on. There are so many things going on. And I know Titans fans have some top-of-mind awareness as they look at the Deshaun Watson situation with the Texans being in the same division. What's the latest there? Because it seems like there has been at least some news lately.
Yeah, so there was a really big update this week. For maybe the last 3-4 months, what's been happening in the background, these plaintiffs in this case have been getting deposed. So those are the female accusers, these massage therapists. They've been getting deposed by Deshaun Watson's attorneys. And as the case has proceeded, Deshaun Watson's supposed to go next. Once all these plaintiffs have been done getting their depositions, Watson's supposed to go, and that deposition was supposed to occur right after the Super Bowl. That's right around now. So what we had early this week was a hearing by Deshaun Watson's lawyer asking to move his deposition back, and the court said, well, why do you want to move your deposition back? Why can't you do it now? You've just taken everyone else's depositions. It's your turn now. And Rusty Hardin, Deshaun Watson's lawyer, had to say, well, the DA's office has been in contact with us, and they are about to make a decision on the criminal front. So from Rusty Hardin, from the horse's mouth, I think we're going to have an update on the criminal case, positive or negative, by April 1st. And why that date is significant, the NFL trade window opens back up on March 16th. So probably going to be about a 2-week period where if a team wants to take a gamble, they can get him, I would think Texans are ready probably to make a move for 60, 70 cents on the dollar. We'll see if any team's willing to take that risk, but certainly it seems to be lining up that way.
Based off this case, the Watson case, kind of give us broad picture view of kind of worst case scenario on the criminal side of this case and the best case scenario that you think may happen in this case, which, nobody knows.
I guess best and worst case depends if you are pro or anti Deshaun Watson, but let's take it from his perspective, right? If
right.
He's best case scenario for him, right? No criminal charges. He might find that out by April 1st. They've been investigating this case for a year. And,
Do you suspect no criminal charges, though? None?
No.
Okay.
You asked me best case. I mean, best case, there's no criminal charges, right? They've been looking at the case for a year, and they haven't moved ahead. So that tells you that this is not an open and shut case. There's some level of gray in the middle here. Worst case for Watson, these are 20 separate plaintiffs. That comes with 20 separate potential criminal allegations of assault. And if these are misdemeanors, let's say they're not felonies, misdemeanor carries up to 1 year in prison. So multiply that out, that could be some significant jail time that Watson could potentially be facing. So, yeah, those are your two extremes, and that's why we haven't seen a team really jump to trade for him, notwithstanding how talented he is. You're looking at a wide range of outcomes. I'm a general manager of an NFL team. I don't want to be the guy that makes the trade, and then all of a sudden Watson is hit with these heavy criminal charges. That's not going to send a good message.
Okay, looking at the history of a case, something similar to this, and just take Watson's name out of it and just name any victim here. What usually happens? What is concluded in the criminal side of a case of this nature?
Yeah, I mean, let's go no further. Maybe an easy one. Maybe the last time a quarterback that had some allegation like this, there's probably two that come to mind, be it Mike Vick or Roethlisberger, right? Two different types of charges. If anything, maybe Roethlisberger was a little similar. Roethlisberger didn't have criminal charges against him. The DA, similar as to what could happen here, said, we've looked at the case. We are not pursuing criminal charges. And then Roger Goodell turned around and still suspended Roethlisberger for, I think, 10 games. So even if you trade for him and he doesn't get criminal charges, Goodell could still suspend Watson. So that's number one. And then, what happened with Mike Vick, it could have had a long and protracted, criminal case with dogfighting back in the day. He ended up taking a deal and for, a lesser sentence on the back end. He served his time and then came back to the league. So those are the scenarios you're looking at. Just keep in mind, if there are no criminal charges, Watson could still be facing discipline from the league. So that's I think, the part that's going kind of underreported. He's not out of the water if there's no criminal charges, but certainly a much more direct path back to the gridiron.
We went with Dan Luss, sports attorney.
So, Dan, Brian Flores wound up getting a job, but it's not a head coaching job. What does that mean, if anything, with his lawsuit and how it might be going forward right now?
So I was just actually watching that earlier today. Brian Flores is on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel on HBO, and he was talking about it, how that would impact the lawsuit. The short answer from his perspective, he probably would be in line for maybe more damages if he did not get a coaching job again in the NFL. But obviously he's got at least when I told senior defensive assistant, that's a job that usually pays more than a typical linebackers coach. So I'm not sure what the difference in that price will be, but the fact that he's got a job is certainly good news. If anything, it might help prove the case a little bit, because I think Flores would say I'm the most, or maybe overqualified linebackers coach in the history of the NFL. And that's Flores' argument here, that overqualified African-American head coaches are being slotted into lesser roles, right? Why doesn't Brian Flores have an OC or a DC job really for Flores? Why wasn't he named the head coach of the Houston Texans? So the way that the coaching cycle, the coaching carousel kind of shook out, it does kind of add some credibility to his claims, because, right, why isn't he the head coach of the Houston Texans? I think objectively he's probably more qualified than Lovie Smith. And then there's other first-time coaches that have got jobs around the league, none of which really have the track record of Brian Flores. So I think it does end up helping his argument to some extent. Guy should be a head coach. If not, he should be a DC. He doesn't have either. It's really hard to explain that.
But doesn't that happen in any industry? Let's just take it from football. There's a lot of overly qualified people for their jobs, and then they're not in the position they should be. So I'm just trying to figure out how you can take that in as the defense if you're Brian Flores. Well, there were no openings, and owners chose who they wanted to have as their head coaches, and then you got to get in where you fit in with a job. There's only so many of those jobs. Yeah, you can say, oh, he should have got an OC or DC job, but were there any available that he wanted, or did he even apply for them? I mean, there's a laundry list of things I would have questions about just because you're a linebacker coach and you're overqualified.
Yeah, that's the question. That's at the heart of Brian Flores' lawsuit. You look back 20 years ago when the Rooney Rule was passed, and I'm not sure that we've seen that much progress in terms of diversity. So the question is that because of just coincidences, right? That every time there's a equally qualified Caucasian head coach versus a person of color, that the Caucasian coach gets it every time, right? When this lawsuit was filed, it was just Mike Tomlin, the only African-American head coach in the league. And the numbers kind of bear itself out. That doesn't, it's either a coincidence or there's something nefarious going on. So I guess just to push back a little bit, right? Certainly it happens that someone doesn't get the job that they want, and go no further than the Brian Daboll, Brian Flores situation. Both guys were equally qualified. I think the fact that one got the job, the Giants job, Daboll over Flores, it might not be anything, right? Have anything to do with racial discrimination. Right. But what I would say, right, not that job, but the Texans and the Saints job that were reportedly jobs where Flores was considered a finalist for, he didn't get those jobs. So the question is, did some type of retaliation occur? If you put the Texans under oath or the Saints under oath and you say, did his lawsuit factor into him not getting this job? It's going to be hard for them to say no to that. And that might be the makings of something we call a retaliation claim, which you're not allowed to do. Someone's allowed to file a lawsuit, and you certainly can't punish them if they exercise their legal right to sue for something that they think is a valid cause. So, yeah, that's why I think, there might be some teeth. It's going to be very hard for the Texans to say, yeah, the Flores lawsuit had nothing to do with the fact that we were about to hire Josh McCown, and then we went off the board and we picked a guy who wasn't even in our, reportedly those final three finalists. So I think there's something brewing here. I think Flores has the makings of a case. Certainly it's going to take a lot of discovery to bear that out.
How much trouble are the Cowboys in with this voyeurism stuff with Rich Dalrymple?
We're about to find out. I guess at a really high level, the people that are not familiar, 2015, Rich Dalrymple, the head of PR for the Dallas Cowboys, reportedly took some, we'll say unwanted photos of cheerleaders, and then a really kind of strange allegation that he took another kind of voyeuristic photo of a relative of Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
So very, very messy. What I find to be problematic, it's one thing if that happens and the Cowboys cut bait, right? Cowboys reportedly paid a settlement of $2.4 million to the cheerleaders that were involved. And then the surprising part, Rich Dalrymple doesn't appear to lose his job. He doesn't appear to lose any type of power, remains with the organization for another 7 years. So, I mean, to the extent that something else comes out here that, like we saw in Washington with sexual harassment, toxic workplace, the fact that that guy kept his job after those type of allegations, that could be the makings of what we call a negligent retention lawsuit, negligent supervision lawsuit. Unclear why Jerry Jones would want to keep that guy on staff. And rest assured, if anything bad happened under his watch, Cowboys certainly knew about those propensities, right? They paid a lot of money to make sure no one else found out about them. So, yeah, I mean, Cowboys aren't in trouble today, but with Congress circling the Washington Commanders organization for some type of similar allegations, I'd be surprised if the Cowboys didn't get wrapped into that.
Dan Lust at Sports Law Lust on Twitter, our guest talking legal sports items.
All right, Dan, you're going to have to help me out on this one here. The federal courts, I guess, launched, to eliminate subsidies for pro stadiums, I guess, for the Washington Commanders now. I'm wondering, it says federal, so how does that impact other professional NFL teams that, want subsidies for building stadiums? And what I'm thinking about is the Titans, of course.
How does it impact them? It impacts all of them equally, I would think. I think in this proposal, my understanding is that the Washington Commanders were cited in this as a reason. We've been talking about this maybe for a couple months. Washington wasn't really complying with Congress's request for those 650,000 emails, and we said, don't mess around with Congress. That's someone you don't want to make an enemy of. So we predicted that these emails were going to come out. They were going to be released. I predicted that thinking that Washington was going to comply with the U.S. government, and they went the other way, right? So there were ramifications the other way. So, it looks like, if that passes, that's going to have an impact on maybe every single team in the NFL. So you're going to have 31 not-so-happy NFL owners staring at one owner at the next meeting.
Well, speaking of that, the Washington Commanders, they've done so many different things here over the last, handful of years. At some point, can the league force them to sell or even to another owner or even take their, franchise? I don't know if they can even get to that unless some egregious. But what can the league do to say, this is not working out?
Yeah, it's funny. There's really two teams that we're having those conversations about whether the owner will be forced to sell. That's Dan Snyder with Washington, as you mentioned. Those guys maybe have the quantity argument. Every single week there is something new with Washington that is problematic. Some really messy allegations date back years, toxic workplace, sexual assault, sexual harassment, some allegations that directly involve Dan Snyder. So not a good look. And then the other one is kind of what we talked about earlier with Brian Flores. He's put an allegation out against Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, that he basically provided a financial incentive for Flores to tank games. And that was back, hashtag tank for Tua. Wouldn't you know, the allegation is that the owner was behind hashtag tank for Tua. So, those conversations are occurring now. Multiple people are reporting that it's not off the table for either owner. So we'll say that, Snyder is quantity. This Stephen Ross stuff is quality. You can't, that's a Pete Rose-esque violation, right? Telling someone to lose and paying them off to lose. That's very close to a bribe. And guys, maybe even close to a federal crime of sports bribery. So, both really messy allegations.
Well, let's go a little deeper into the Flores and then the NDA. I guess kind of explain that to everybody what that is and what he tried to get him to do. Flores, that is, with the owner, to tank the games. And will that fly? And do you think that's really going to be the last straw for the Dolphins in losing this case? It seems like he has some form of evidence, let's just say.
Yeah, I don't know. Just reading the complaint, this Brian Flores case, it's a 58-page complaint. In it, they have text from Bill Belichick. They put those in there. So this is me using, my legal brain here. I would think that if they had the evidence of, Stephen Ross offering $100,000, if it was some type of email or a text, that would have made its way into the complaint. It seems like the lawyers behind Brian Flores wanted to put their best foot forward, go with their best punch early. in the lead up to the Super Bowl. They didn't put it in there. So that tells me maybe it's not as strong of evidence in terms of maybe it's somebody overhearing a conversation or something like that. There was a report that came out that there was at least an unnamed witness that can confirm that offer was made, $100,000 per loss, to Brian Flores. So, the evidence is going to be big here. We know the NFL has launched a full investigation into Stephen Ross. And now you kind of have this war of words between the Dolphins and Brian Flores. It's a really messy situation, but someone seems to be lying here. And if that person is lying is Stephen Ross, I think this is the type of nature and character of an allegation where someone will lose their team. You can't have any incentive or a financial incentive, $100,000 to lose games. So you don't necessarily need a check, right? A cash check for $100,000. The fact that offer was made for a certain amount, that's certainly not going to look good.
We're with the sports law professor of NY Law School, as well as a sports attorney, Dan Luss.
So, Dan, let's hit home. We got a couple of schools here locally that are in Conference USA that have a football schedule, and it's got teams on it that are trying to get to the Sun Belt, talking about Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss. How do you think this all plays out with these three teams trying to go from one conference to the other?
So I'm happy you asked me about this. This is a story I think deserves more national attention. This is maybe a story that's been brewing ever since Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12. And if you guys remember, I think I was definitely on the station talking about it, but the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference, a guy by the name of Bob Bowlesby, went guns a-blazing, threatened to sue everyone, and he tried to save the conference. That was his move. Yep. So it didn't really matter to him, right? Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. He's going to make sure no other schools leave. So what we're seeing in Conference USA, Marshall says, hey, we're leaving. Old Dominion, Southern Miss, they're all going to go to the Sun Belt Conference. Not so fast, according to the Conference USA. They say you owe us 14 months notice, and we're not going to let you leave without it. And that's probably because they want to find some replacement schools in those 14 months. And, if you're just following this Conference USA battle, these three schools leaving would make 9 schools in total leaving the conference. And I believe they've only brought 4 new members in. So that's be a net negative of 5 schools. So, in the conference realignment battle, we've seen the Big East disappear in terms of football. Conference USA, they're maybe pulling a little bit of a Bob Bowlesby, and they're saying, we're not letting you leave. So you can pay us as much money as you want. If schools continue to leave at this rate, Conference USA doesn't exist anymore. So that's I think, what we're seeing. Certainly we had news today. If maybe this is breaking news to some, Marshall has sued Conference USA for the right to leave the conference. Yeah. And now those guys are going to be duking it out in a West Virginia courtroom. I'd expect Southern Miss and Old Dominion to follow with suits of their own. And we're going to see this play out in the courtroom, 3 separate courtrooms, 3 different schools. And really, conference realignment is on trial here.
The toothpaste seems to be way out of the tube on NIL stuff. We can finish up with this one. If the NCAA had just even sort of played along, tried to modernize as they went, we probably wouldn't be talking about the wild, wild west situation that we have now. But do you think ultimately they can try to back this thing into some legislation at this point?
I think they should, right? What we call it the national championship, right? We can't have recruiting battles being decided by state law. That seems to be unfair, right? The national drinking age is 21. You could go to a bar in Hawaii, Alaska, over in Tennessee, it's 21. I mean that to say it's not necessarily the best rule, 21 years of age to drink, but it's a clean rule, and everyone has to abide by it. I find it patently unfair that state politicians are kind of directing these recruiting battles and which schools want to toe the line and which don't. I don't understand why you wouldn't be pushing some type of federal bill. Why, maybe it's the chancellors, the admins. Some states seem to have advantageous laws, and those states don't want to push for a federal bill. But if you want a fair, national championship, a fair conference championship with different states, with different state laws, it's not really that fair. So I'm hoping our politicians get their act together, which they are not inclined to do. But I think a federal bill will really help solve this problem. So, yeah, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in. But if you put a federal bill out there, it's going to clean up a lot of the mess.
Great stuff, Dan. People definitely need to follow you at Sports Law Lust, Dan Lust, New York Law School. Again, also the Conduct Detrimental podcast. You also have a Twitter account there that I followed earlier today and have spent, I don't know, a rabbit hole down it for several minutes this morning. It's fantastic information and always good to catch up with you. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you, Dan.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Appreciate it. I'm going to keep my toothpaste
In the tube. All right. Dan Lust, seriously, great follow. There's the law aspect of sports that Wheel always seems to be turning, and you definitely want to follow Dan anywhere you can find him because it's fantastic information. We've got some questions out there. We were asking you guys about broadcast teams, and we talked about maybe does it matter to you who you watch, and people have responded in the Zone TV chat, but our director of content said maybe we just ask people, who's your least favorite network broadcast team? What's your least favorite? You can hit us with that. You can also answer the poll question at Blaine and Mickey on Twitter. hate to talk over this intro. This is such a good one. There we go. Blaine and Mickey. Well, you're supposed to talk in radio. We used to get in trouble if we listened to music too long.
That's probably why they don't have me at the point. Because I'd be letting them. Oh, I like that song. Let it roll.
Oh, I like that.
Rage Against the Machine.
I know, Rage.
Feel it call. Yeah. Yeah, that was my song on game day right there.
Oh, yeah, Phil Collins.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. That was my song. Because I wanted something to calm me down and relax me and then explode.
I want to say that was like Harson's.
Ooh.
Like Brian Harson's thing. Like that's his song that he likes on game day.
That was blasted in the Arkansas State locker room.
I want to say that it was like playing on the field a lot on game days. And finally I said,
I think he took it from me.
Is there a reason why? And they're like, this is Harson's jam. It's not like I see him often anymore, but I think that's his jam is in the air tonight by Phil Collins.
Yeah, that was my song, man.
We asked this question, speaking of ball games, who's your least favorite network NFL broadcast team? Now, some of these are being broken up because the report was today Troy Aikman's going to get, $17.5 million to go to ESPN. Well, he's like the color guy, not the play-by-play guy.
I thought it was 20.
Oh, I saw 17.5. Maybe it is 20. Maybe people are just trying
Amazon
to estimate.
Offered him. That was the rumor. I don't know.
Well, Amazon, of course, is the rumored what destination, and Lucas is our play-by-play expert. Amazon, the rumored destination of one Al Michaels.
Allegedly.
Who even said during the Super Bowl to Chris Collinsworth, slide in for one last time.
One last ride.
One last ride. So they could soon be broken up. Buck and Eggman could soon be broken up because Buck is still under contract with Fox for another year. I guess Nance and Romo don't appear to be going anywhere. I'll ask you guys this. Does some of the shine seem to be off of Tony Romo to people? I've heard more people complain about Troy Aikman this season than in his other years combined.
Well, you asked about Tony Romo, and then you go to Aikman. So,
Troy Aikman. I'm sorry, Tony Romo. Tony Romo, not Troy Aikman.
Oh,
the shine seems to be off of Tony Romo. Some sorry, Cowboys quarterbacks Tony and Troy. Mm-hmm. The shine seems to be off of Romo. Some I saw more people complain about him, and I had more people complain about him.
Is that what happens when you get the big contract, 10-year, $180 million? Then all of a sudden, you start watching him a lot closer. I don't like him. He's still.
I don't know. I mean,
I think, the shine is over. He got his contract.
Maybe it is. Like you said,
it from his point of view.
It was a long deal worth all the money in the world.
Here's what I can say is, as much as I like Romo, this year was the first time I really didn't like some of his broadcasts. Like, I thought it was sketchy. Like, I don't feel like he dug deep like he was doing before. Mm-hmm. And give me the insight because he was getting a little overwhelmed, especially it was a Cowboys game. I think they had to win. Maybe it was the playoff game. And
in the playoff
game, I did not like what he was talking about there. He was wrong. It was the first time, and I've liked him all the way through. I'm like, I love the backdrop and all the information he's given us and, about how they should have spiked the ball and what they should be thinking 3 or 4 plays down the road. In that game, he did not.
Do you think his emotions got the best of him because it's his team and it's the people that he knows? And I felt like his emotions ran with him in that game.
It was the first time.
What was the thing? At one point, he was saying, "Just let him score. Just let him score." There was something where I thought,
I think that was the playoff game.
Yeah, it was the playoff game. No, don't do that.
It was the Bengals game. Yeah.
Now, what I can say, before he said it, I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm being honest. And when I was thinking, I'm thinking like a coach. Should I let them score here? And I think that's what was going through his mind. And he just said it on air and said they should let them score because you knew they were on a 2 or 3 yard line. Guess what you're playing against now? Not the actual score, but against the clock.
Yeah.
And so as I thought about it, I disagreed with letting them score, and they didn't. Eventually, they scored 2 plays later. But I get what he was doing. I know everybody was saying no, but at the same time, that was the thought process if he was a head coach.
It seems like there were times where he was just playing, like you said, he was just playing things out, but not in his mind. He was just saying them. And you'd be like, no, I don't know about that, dude. I don't know about that. As opposed to maybe in the past, he played it out in his head and then just picked a scenario and said that. Mm-hmm. But he was just saying it in real time this year, and that seemed to happen more and more.
Yeah, it did. And then I think that's why people kind of start wavering on the Tony Romo because I even did, and I like how he broadcast at least the years before that, and this year's the first time I started. Hey, watch out, Tony! Don't say that.
Well, when you mentioned his big contract, obviously he's going to be at this for a long time. And he and Jim Nance, who I know is a Nashville resident, I don't know if there's anybody better than Jim Nance at anything that he does. He's so good at everything, golf, football, you can stick him in anything, and he's great in that situation. But we ask, who's your least favorite NFL Network broadcast team? Not NFL Network, but Network NFL broadcast team. Monday Night Football crew is running away with this, 52%.
With
least
Riddick
favorite.
Least
Greasy
favorite.
and Riddick and Levy.
Yeah.
And if you're ESPN,
they kind of threw them together too.
They did.
And I think they've done an okay job, but they're not, I can't wait to listen to what they have to say. They're just okay. They should probably be, B.
Bill says Troy is the most hated. There's a bunch of people that don't like Troy Aikman as a broadcaster. I mean, there are people who didn't like him as the Cowboys quarterback. But Monday Night Football crew is running away with this 52% least favorite. Michaels and Collinsworth, who we don't think they're going to be together anymore because of contract stuff, 17%. 16% is Buck and Aikman. 15% Nance and Romo. So Nance and Romo getting the least votes for least favorite, meaning most people seem to if you're going to flip this around, they would be the favorite of all of these. Monday Night Football would be the least favorite.
Well,
and if you're ESPN, you have to know. I mean, it doesn't take an unscientific poll by Blaine and Mickey. You'd have to know, hey, man, we ain't winning friends and influencing people with this group. What can we pay Troy Aikman? And then what can we pay Joe Buck?
Watch this. Since we can't get the Mannies to do Monday Night Football.
And you're right.
Yeah.
Why would they go do that and fly to some city and have people hate them? Because, like you said, people hate broadcasters.
Yeah, they're going to critique them because you're up there, and you're bound to make a mistake.
You're bound
impossible.
to.
It's impossible, even in a broadcast.
But if you're on your couch eating pizza and wings and drinking beer and talking to Marshawn Lynch,
the critique changes how you look at them. Yep. Yeah, it does.
It does.
No doubt.
Cousin Andrew says he hates the Manning cast. Well, there you go.
Yeah, you're right there with Mickey, huh?
I don't hate it.
Not hate it.
I just want the football talk.
Stuff. Right.
Kenny Blanco on this. He voted for all of them. How can I vote for all of them? And Blaine and Mickey replied and said, "You just did."
We did. You did third party. You did VY.
Yeah, I did. Blaine and Mickey. They'll be back next.
Well, we need to hurry. We need to hurry because rates are definitely going up, and the days of locking loans in the twos could be behind us. I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball, but it's not a secret. It's everywhere. Mortgage interest rates have definitely started to rise over the last month or so. But the good news is at thehomeloanexpert.com, we truly have those lower rates. In fact, our average rate last year that we locked in our clients was more than a quarter point lower than the national average. So there's some numbers to think about, over a quarter point lower. And the rate you lock in truly does matter. It matters in the monthly savings on a refi. It matters on that new house payment. So get the rate that you need. Get the lowest rate possible. Work with the experts. Let us answer questions. Talk through income, credit, all that stuff. And get you pre-approved right away. And with our 21-day closing guarantee, you can be in your new home in weeks. Find out more. Give us a call at the Home Loan Expert or visit thehomeloanexpert.com. Thank you, sir.
It is 2:03. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. A big night in Bridgestone Arena tonight as the Preds host the Dallas Stars and will honor legendary goaltender Pekka Rinne retiring the number 35. Rinne will be the first Preds player to ever have his jersey retired with the franchise. He retired at the end of last season. Puck drop tonight is at 7:30. Of course, the Preds will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Nissan Stadium for the NHL Stadium Series on Saturday night. Big game tonight for the Belmont Bruins on the road at number 19 Murray State. Belmont has won 10 in a row, while Murray still undefeated in OVC play. Tip-off tonight is at 8 p.m. And in women's basketball, Vanderbilt is at home taking on 15th-ranked Florida, a 5:30 tip-off. And the Lady Vols will be in Thompson Bowling Arena taking on Mississippi State. That is also a 5:30 tip-off for number 16, Tennessee. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2, locked and loaded. You will want to go back and catch the podcast for today if you're just getting in the car or just getting a chance to check out the show. Dan Lust, the sports lawyer, joined us in the first hour, and we asked him about everything. Deshaun Watson and Brian Flores, and for all you Western and Middle fans, the CUSA, teams trying to get out of the conference that are on the football schedules, that kind of thing. It's fantastic stuff. You'll want to go back and catch it.
Yeah, as well as the Washington Commanders, who keep giving us all these gifts that keeps on giving with that whole organization under Snyder. So that was huge, as well as NIL. So, yeah, we hit on a lot of different points, from the lawyer, the sports attorney, Dan Lust. What a great name, too, Lust.
Yes. Also had a lengthy discussion about sports broadcasting. There's a story out there, Troy Aikman getting all kinds of money to go to ESPN to work on Monday Night Football, that he is a free agent, and he's expected to leave Fox Sports to become the main analyst for Monday Night Football. This is the New York Post. He reported this. His deal will be for 5 years, yearly salary expected to be right around whatever Tony Romo makes, which is, $18 million. Mm-hmm. And the irony of all this is they've got 2 other analysts to do it, and they have the Manning cast, and they have Steve Levy. So he's going to stick Steve Levy and Peyton Manning together and hope that works. Then there's talk that Joe Buck has a year left on his contract, so where does he want to go? And we've had some discussions, essentially, do you care who does the games nationally? Does that make you want to watch more or less? And we put up a question, who's your least favorite national broadcast team? And the Monday Night Football crew currently is running away with that. I mean, you put Aikman and Buck together on Monday Night Football. I think for those of us who watch a lot of games and always watch, we'd be like, yeah, man, Aikman and Buck, that's cool. Yeah, good deal. I'm sure. But if I'm somebody who doesn't watch football, I'm going to go like, well, I wasn't going to watch, but I mean, it's Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. So I'm not going to watch The Bachelor tonight. I'm going to watch Monday Night Football. I don't know.
I don't know either. I have no idea. I mean, Aikman, Romo, Riddick. I mean, you go down the list. They're all solid to me. I don't know if one is better than the other. It's all about your personal preference or what you want to hear when you're listening. So, some are a little more entertaining. I like how you can be a little looser, like the podcast there with the Mannings, which all the other, broadcast teams could kind of have that kind of platform. But when you're up in the booth, it's a little different. So they have to kind of stay to the script. So, Troy, man, he's divisive. Some people like him, some people hate him. I mean, so I'm probably right down the middle. I mean, all of them do a really good job. I think it's a tough job. I think all of them do fairly well. There's at times it's almost impossible that you're going to be, perfect every time you do, a game. It's just impossible. So this year was the first time I'm a big Tony Romo guy that I felt like I was critiquing him a little bit more than normal for whatever reason. I just don't think he was as sharp as he was in the beginning. And maybe because he was new. Mm-hmm. And then now that we've gotten used to him, now we start settling in and start, critiquing him a little bit differently. But I'm not really a big critiquer of the crews, really. I just want to enjoy the game. So some people are all in on that stuff. I just think it's a much tougher job being that I've worked at NFL Network and some different networks, and it's a lot more involved than people thinking. It's a tough job. That's why they get paid the big bucks. So you're going to get scrutinized, and I really believe that's why Peyton Manning won't do it. He doesn't want to be criticized, and he doesn't want to critique the players that he actually played against a lot of these guys.
Sure.
So I just think he's kind of weighing it out and wanting to do it his way, which is smart on his part because he still won. He only did, 10 games out of the 17. I'm sure they still gave him a boatload of money. And he did it his way, which was kind of a fun way and really hard to critique with special guest, with all his connections from LeBron James, Rock, to you name it, whoever was on there at the time. So sometimes I would flip back and watch that just to get entertained a little bit, especially if the game was kind of boring or low scoring or just maybe wasn't some good quarterbacks out there and they both were injured or something like that and they didn't play.
And there were some of those this year.
Right. And so I would want to be a little more entertained. My wife, she was all in on the Manning cast. She was like, I'm only watching it this way. Oh, who's on? Oh, man, dang, I want to hear him talk. It didn't matter. It was actor, entertainer, another athlete. It didn't matter. So she liked that part of it. And I actually did too, to a certain extent, because they get to have a framework of just sitting on the couch, two famous brothers get to sit there and get their viewpoints and joke about it too at the same time and poke at each other and talk about football. That's right up my alley.
I think the Manning cast, and you pointed that out earlier about your wife saying, oh my gosh, this is the one I want to watch. I do think, depending on how they book their guests, they could get people to watch that who don't care about football.
Right. Yeah, because she definitely
if you love The Rock,
don't care.
Right. But if you love The Rock and you want to hear about his next movie, and, oh, by the way, there's a football game in the background, who cares? Yeah. I want to hear him talk about
a little bit of his college career that he played. And, then there was another guy that came along named Warren Sapp that got him on the bench. I mean, you kind of learn this information and everything else. Meanwhile, his goal was to make it in the NFL. And he was at the U when the U was the legit U.
Yes, it was. Cousin Andrew in the Zone TV chat said, I loved Romo his first year. He gets on my nerves now. As far as my favorite or least favorite, I'm a guy that doesn't care who's calling the game I'm watching. Then he responded to himself and said, I hate the Manning cast too.
Yeah. Same. It's not for everybody, but, for some entertainment purposes, if the game is kind of boring, I may go that route.
Well, and it does give you a place to go, and some of those games are stinkers.
Are you a critiquer or have a best crew or someone you just don't like? Because there are people who just don't like certain broadcasts. They just don't. They're like, oh, man, I'm putting my TV on mute the entire game.
I'll say this. Nobody bothers me that much. Nobody. It's a football game. I'm just going to enjoy the game, and I always hope that I think you're the best at this. I did a podcast last night, and I told those guys, and I'll say the name of it because you can look out for it. Victory Monday podcast with Kieran and Trey, and I told those guys, nobody breaks down football better than Blaine. I said, think about it, because they were asking me about how did I get here and all this stuff. I said, my job is to sit with Blaine Bishop every day and talk about football. And then I get out of the way. Why did this work? Why did they blitz there? And then I let you tell people, and you do a better job than anybody. So I'm spoiled because I do that 5 days a week with you, and then 6 days during football season. And then on the 6th day during football season, Dyson is on with us.
Yeah.
And you guys both do such a great job. So the main thing I want is just a color analyst who can tell me this is why they did that.
What happened?
This is why that didn't work. This is why that worked. So as long as the guy's good at that, that's all I want. Is just tell me. And for the play-by-play guy, and we were talking about Jim Nantz earlier, just describe the action in an interesting way. Keep the game moving. Stick a story in every now and then or a nugget about something, and I'm fine. I'm fine with it. But for Aikman to get sent over to ESPN, it sure feels like they're going to make a play for Joe Buck, too. It just feels like they want to make a big splash on Monday Night Football. And
how do these guys get out of their contracts then if he has a year
left? That would have been a good question for Dan Lust.
They can buy him out, I'm sure.
I mean, like most contracts, I'm sure you get bought out. Prometheus says Witten was less than ideal. Talking about Jason Witten's ill-fated.
I think he did it too fast without really serious training and thought he could just walk into it. Romo did it the right way. He practiced. He waited a whole long off season, and he, thought and figured out how to do it, and then came in like gangbusters, and that's why I was so impressed initially.
I thought they did Witten a disservice with that too. You just put him on the biggest broadcast in football, Jason Witten, without any prior experience whatsoever. Of course, it wasn't going to go smoothly. Right. I felt bad for Jason Witten. I don't know if he's ever going to broadcast
again. Can't we say
again.
that same thing about Tony Romo?
Did he not have a couple years off in the lead up to it? I don't know how prepared Romo was for it. Maybe he just
I felt
more
like he had
natural
more
at it.
preparation time, but he was definitely that was the first thing we saw him do.
Yeah, no, you're right. He definitely went in green. He didn't have any experience. That's a good point.
Yeah, Witten did struggle, and you're right, Lucas. Do we ever see him try to come back and do it again, or does he just say, no way, I'm never going to do it again? And Blaine, you brought this up earlier. A lot of it too has to do with the chemistry of who they put you with, and all that kind of stuff. And Romo and Nance, they have good chemistry. I mean, he got put in a great situation. He got put with Jim Nance. I mean, that's pretty darn good chemistry. Jalen says Gary Danielson is my least favorite commentator here on the Zone TV chat. I don't have any beef with Gary Danielson. Again, as long as you're not getting in the way of the broadcast, I'm okay with it. I mean, I'll say this. I watch Cardinals games, and so I always buy this baseball package on cable so I can watch every one of the games. I know that's sick, but that's just who I am. That's what I do in the summertime. I watch the Cardinals.
That's your team.
And some nights I might flip over because you get every broadcast. So if they're playing another team, you can listen to their broadcast too. And there are some there are some local baseball broadcast crews that I've been like, oh, I could not listen to this every night. Oh my gosh.
Well, once you've listened to a national one, then it's kind of going back local. It's like, that's a little different.
Now, some of them
are real good.
Some of them are great.
Because they know all the inside of the team. Yeah, they do.
I want to say, I tweeted about this last year, Miami Marlins. Maybe it's their broadcast team they were fantastic. There were so few people there. You could hear like the players talking in the on-deck circle in the broadcast. Wow. Like you could hear one guy say, come on, Jim, let's hit this one. You could hear everything. There was nobody there.
That's the one Jeter's a part of, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see him walking around? That would have been the highlight of my.
Well, you could hear basically everything but him talking on the broadcast. How about this? You can hear Doug Mathews. Lots to get to with Doug Mathews. Spring football coming up. Tennessee lost a position coach this week. Cody Burns headed to the NFL, the wide receiver coach. Let's get into all that and more next with the man, Snoop Doggy Doug Mathews, right here on Blaine and Mickey. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. We're joined now by the SEC's leading rusher in 1969, Coach Doug Mathews. We teased this last week, Coach, and you were telling Blaine some stories, but
man, he's great.
We told people you come back next week, you're going to get the story because people are so entrenched with you as a radio broadcaster and coach.
And a coach, right.
Yeah, they don't.
I don't realize we got the leading rusher of the SEC in here. What are you talking about? Give this man his respect.
And as you were telling us, I was a JUCO player. You played at Vanderbilt, of course, and people don't know. And you said, well, the first year I played defensive back. You only played running back 1 year, and you led the league in rushing.
Well, you were returning punts, which
Yes.
shows your talent. Because that's one of the toughest jobs, physically out there, mentally, naturally. Everybody knows playing quarterback. But during your time, a lot of quarterbacks ran the ball. So kind of take us through your history lesson of your playing career real quick from JUCO playing, you said quarterback, and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I played at Northeastern Oklahoma Junior College. We won the national championship that year. It's a very outstanding junior college. I think they've won 7, 8. Something like that, national championships in their history. But I was recruited to Vanderbilt. The head coach of Vanderbilt at that time was a guy named Bill Pace. Mm-hmm. And Coach Pace was from my hometown of 2,000 people in Oklahoma, a little town called Pitcher, Oklahoma. He also was an NEO guy, and that's how I got down here. And I didn't know where Nashville was. I'd never been east of the Mississippi. I don't even think I'd even been to the Mississippi. But been in an airplane one time. That's when we flew to make play in the national championship game, which was in Savannah, Georgia at that time. And my first recruiting trip was to Nashville on a plane. So anyway, I was kind of a country boy that didn't live in the country, but yeah. And then came and had a good career here. Still have a lot of buddies. Got right into coaching after that. Knew I wanted to be a coach. Got into coaching. I coached my first year at Montgomery Bell Academy. And then I got into college coaching the next year at 24 years old. I didn't know a thing about secondary, but that's what I was coaching, and ended up, 20-year career. It was good. Still a lot of good friends
he's so
here.
Modest over
I
there.
know. We're wanting juicy details here.
He was the option. And
Right.
He forced him to go to I because he was an I formation running back to lead the SEC. So yeah, man. Kind of.
It was a different era back then too.
Was,
It was defensive football. Primarily you ran the ball. You shortened games. I don't think they were shortened intentionally, but really nobody was throwing the ball much back then. The first team, at least from Southeastern Conference-wise, first team that came out and threw it a whole lot was in 1969, the Florida team down there that had Carlos Alvarez, who there is an excellent, I think it's a 30 for 30.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I mean, it is a great. He was, as Coach Dickey had gone back to down there in 1970, but. A lot of, the wishbone was coming around then. Texas was running it. Oklahoma started. Alabama took it up after in 1970, I believe they took it up over, maybe 71. So it was a different era, but it was a lot of fun. We only played 10 games back then. You only played 6 conference games. And we played my 2 years here, we played Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. And then my senior year, we opened up with Michigan, Bo Schembechler's first year. Now, this is before you guys were even born.
Oh, no, I was born.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, I was. I was.
I was not.
Blaine was not. One of us was born then,
take
Coach.
us back, though. You were telling us, I did not know this. I knew Georgia Tech was in the SEC and they left, but you said Tulane.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech and Tulane actually left the conference in 1966. But the schedules had already been made out, so whoever was playing them for the next 2 years, 67 and 68, my first year, 69 too, was they counted as conference games back then because they'd already had the schedule set. So they counted as conference games even though they were out. Southeastern Conference started in 1933, and I think about 36 or 7, Swanee got out. They were SEC team.
Swanee. Yeah, I was waiting for you to blow his mind with that one.
And then Georgia Tech and Tulane got out in 1966. different reasons. Georgia Tech got out because Bobby Dodd, who had been a great, Hall of Fame single-wing tailback at Tennessee for General Needland. They wanted, thought they'd do better as an independent. Didn't quite work out. Of course, now they're in the ACC, but there was a, like I said, it was a different brand of football back then. Nothing, nothing really not even close to what it is now.
Well, that leads me to my next question. And since we're having a history lesson here, kind of tell us what you recall now that he's back in the SEC, not as the head coach of Tennessee. Look, you don't know where I'm going, but he's still at Bama once again. When I say his name, tell me what's the first thing you recall when he was at Tennessee as the head coach, Derek Dooley.
I thought Derek Dooley, two things come to mind. Number one, really not ready. Certainly not ready for a Southeastern Conference job. Kind of unusual how he got the job, but that's maybe for a later date. And the other thing is that he was a really good guy, but he just wasn't ready to be a head football coach. Tony Barnhart, everybody knows who Tony is. Tony, very, very close to Vince Dooley. And I remember when Derek Dooley got the job, I called Tony. I said, Tony, what do you know about this? This is before he was named. And he said, Doug, he's going to take it. And he said, I was talking to Coach Dooley, and Coach Dooley said, Tony, he's not ready for it. But how do you turn down an opportunity to be the head coach at Tennessee? He's good.
A lot of time you take risks like that, you think they're going to grow into the job with the pedigree and everything else. And he coached at Louisiana Tech, and then he was a lawyer, and so he was a sharp guy, and he could pick up things pretty quick.
He was, and he had a run with Coach Saban at LSU and with the Miami Dolphins, but he had never been a coordinator. A very smart guy. And I'll tell you one thing he did do that a lot of people don't know. When they expanded the football facility into the Anderson football complex, when they expanded that, he made some changes that were already that already had the plans for. He made some changes in the way he arranged some of the building that was really positive. So I guess that was probably the best thing he did there, but wasn't ready for the job. Got offered it, quite frankly, after the head coach at Utah was offered it, turned it down, took it, and then Tennessee rescinded that offer and went down immediately and got Derek Dooley. Derek, I think, he was kind of a backup choice at the best, but again, not ready, but you got to take it, You don't get Tennessee type jobs offered to you very often.
Yeah. So you got to take it. We're on with the coach, Doug Mathews, the SEC leading rusher. I don't know. I forgot what year you said. 69?
69. By the way, Lonzo in the Zone TV chat said, I would have business cards made if I led the SEC in rushing for a year. I would too, Lonzo.
Interesting. That was the 100th year of
college football.
Yeah. 100th year.
So you're part of the history lesson of college football.
I'll tell you one other interesting thing.
Did you guys have the 100 on one side of your helmet?
Yeah, everybody on one side. Had an interesting thing, too, in high school. I grew up with Steve Owens. He was from Miami, Oklahoma. He won the Heisman Trophy in 1969, and still a good friend, still lives in Norman, and those are good times.
Oh, man, I got to go look that up in Wikipedia.
Steve Owens, I'm telling you, man. I could talk this history stuff with you all day.
I know, but you and Mickey go back and forth.
Coach Mathews, brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Designate before you celebrate, because fans don't let fans drive drunk. Brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Again, bringing you Coach Doug Mathews on our show every week. It's funny, I've had this guy's name written down on my notes for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we're talking about history and guys passing through Tennessee. There's just kind of been a rumor out there, and I can't see that it's ever been resolved, that David Cutcliffe might join the staff at Texas in some capacity, in some way. Do you know what the latest is on that? And then I also wanted to ask you this. Why was the timing never right for him to be the head coach at Tennessee?
I think a couple of things on David. First off, David came in, Philip Fulmer and I came the same year in 1980. Philip was recruiting, part of his recruiting area was Alabama at that time. David was the head coach at Banks High School, which was where the Rutledge brothers were from. And great football down there.
Yeah.
He actually came up, he was single, came up as a grad assistant for a couple of years. then kind of worked his way up. And one of the reasons why I think David was such an excellent play caller, and he was an excellent play caller and developer of quarterbacks, obviously, but he came in as a grad assistant on offense, worked with the tight ends first, then worked with the tight ends in the offensive line, who the offensive line at that time was Phillip for Coach Majors.
Right.
Then when I moved over to defense in 1988, he moved to the running back position. And then a little later, he coached the quarterbacks and then, of course, became the offensive coordinator and head coach. So he coached 4 of the positions on offense, including the offensive line, everything but the wide receiver. So, and I think David, quite frankly, was, he had a good run at Ole Miss. He won 10 games down there with Eli.
Right.
Didn't work out there. Went to Notre Dame and had some heart problems up there. Actually had to lay out a year. And then came back for Phillip for 1 year, and then got the job at Duke. Excellent play caller. I have not talked to David in maybe a year or so, but I would seriously doubt if he goes anywhere as an analyst.
Yeah.
And I think David's probably 64, 5 in that area, I think. So I think probably he had a great run at Duke. Did, I think, as well as you can do at Duke. And I would seriously doubt if he goes back as an analyst anywhere. He certainly doesn't have to do that.
The timing just never seemed to be right for him at Tennessee. And there was the run of Dooley and Butch and Kiffin and everybody else. And I've got friends who are Tennessee fans who have always kind of wondered, I wonder why David never got a chance.
Well, and you think about it, we had Majors for 16 years as head coach. Then Fulmer for 16 years. There was 32 years there, over 3 decades, and a lot of outstanding football of 2 coaches. And then, of course, when Phillip got out, David was at Duke at the time.
Right.
And athletic director decided to go in a different direction at that point. But hopefully we got the right guy hired up there right now. I like him a lot. I don't think there's any doubt when you watch what he does on the football field, his offense, his defense. I think, no doubt, I think he's a quality guy there. The question is going to be, until it's not been answered yet, but can he recruit to the level that you have to recruit to at this in this conference? Since, as we know, whenever Texas and Oklahoma get here, just think about this, guys. When Texas and Oklahoma get here, if they would get here next year, there would be 7 teams in this league who have won at least one national championship in the last 25 years. Now think about that.
That's crazy.
Think about that.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be super competitive.
Shameless plug for Big Orange Sunday. You had Heupel on last week. It's on the podcast page, anywhere you consume podcasts. I went back and listened to it this morning. Usually I catch a little bit. I heard you say you have a church segment. I usually catch you a little bit on the way to church.
I do have a church segment. That's why I
know. But I went back and caught it. But you guys spent a long time talking about recruiting.
Yeah, I've only had 3, and I've been doing Big Orange Sunday in some way, shape, or form for about 26, 27 years, straight years. And I've only had 3 Tennessee head coaches on with me, Majors and Fulmer. There was the only 2 on that show. Now, I had some on after they retired or were retired.
Right.
But he wanted to come on, and the big reason is that, and I think we're going to continue to do some shows on this, he understands that to have his best shot, I don't ever say you have to do it this way to be successful, but the easier way, not easy way, but the easier way for Tennessee, you have to control Middle Tennessee and the state of Tennessee. Tennessee only signed 2 football players out of the state this year. There were 3 Tennessee players, 3 of them from Middle Tennessee, that were playing in the Super Bowl this year that never even visited the University of Tennessee. That has been, to me, without question, the biggest drawback for the previous coaches. Coach Bush Jones did a really good job over here. Got several Hurd and 4 or 5 really good players. But that's been about it the last 15 years. And if Tennessee doesn't start controlling this area, I did a look 2 years ago. I don't know about last year, but 2 years ago, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, and Georgia all had players on their roster from Middle Tennessee. and those are the blue bloods in Ohio State. Those are the blue bloods of the college football playoff era.
Right.
They're the ones that are there, three of them every single year. So Tennessee knows that. Coach Heupel knows that. I really like his enthusiasm for recruiting here. He's going to spend a lot of time in this area. He'll be back over and we'll be doing a coaching clinic for the coaches here probably in May. And I expect him, and I hope he can do as well as I think he can do. He's got a great personality, visits with coaches well. But this league now is full of really good coaches. And let me tell you who the guy that I know we talk SEC down here, but let me tell you, if I'm and I am as a football fan, let me tell you who I'm looking at. I'm watching what's going to happen down with Cristobal down at Miami.
Yeah,
because that is a football-rich area. He is a relentless recruiter out of the Saban line. He just hired Kevin Steele to be his defensive coordinator. They worked together at Alabama, and I think he will do he'll do a great job. I really do. That job's going to change down there quickly.
Build himself a super staff as well down there. Doug Mathews hanging out with Blaine and Mickey here in the studio today.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming through. Well, naturally, you talked about the last time about the cohesiveness and chemistry you must have, not only in the football field, but in your coaching staff. And now he's lost a receivers coach. Got any kind of idea of what direction he may go? And, how much does this hurt, them losing a staff member this late? Does it matter?
I don't think it does. Cody Burns, wide receiver. And the reason I don't blame is because Coach Halsey, who's the quarterback coach, was actually recruited and coached by Coach Heupel at Oklahoma. He's been with him for all these years. So he has his four guys that have been with him. Ellerby, who's been with him at the offensive line position.
Former Arkansas State assistant Glenn Ellerby.
Yeah, so if you if you had to lose a coach, and you're going to lose coaches at that level. And listen, when I fully understand when a young man gets an opportunity, and he's a young man, when you get an opportunity to go to the NFL, it gets the big draw to the NFL right now is not money. You're making as much money in college, but you don't recruit.
Right, don't recruit.
And
no portal, no TP.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's the reason, but they'll replace him. But the good thing is offensively, if you're going to lose coach for Coach Heupel, I'd want it to be offensive because that's his baby. He knows a lot of quality offensive coaches, and I think he'll replace him with a good one.
Last one for me is kind of a broad question. I think I know the answer to a couple of these guys, I guess, that I'm asking. But you had the Mount Rushmore of Tennessee football players. Who are the four guys? I think I know two of them, but let's. Well, you're the historian of the.
Yeah, and I go way, way, way back. I mean,
right, so
just to give you an idea, Tennessee has 5 single-wing tailbacks that are in the College Football Hall of Fame. 5. Tennessee got out of the single wing in 1963. Was their last year. They were one of. I don't know if they were the latest. I wasn't following Tennessee back then.
Right.
It was in high school, as a matter of fact, but. So they have 5 single-wing tailbacks. But I think, guys, you have to put on there players that I actually saw or watched tape on, and I'm only going to go back to the 70s.
Okay.
Because, I'm not aware of Reggie White certainly would be there. Reggie might be the best defensive lineman that ever played, certainly one of the top 5 in pro football.
It'd be hard to argue with that.
Great player out of Chattanooga. He would certainly be there. You got to have Peyton on there.
That's my two.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And then you could kind of argue about a few others. I was fortunate enough to coach Chuck Webb when I was on offense, Reggie Cobb. But Jamal Lewis might be there. They've had that run of about 694 up until about 2002. There were some great players came through there.
Oh my gosh!
And you know what happens. I mean, it's you just like the MVPs, pro football. Best football player in the NFL, in my opinion, is not Aaron Rodgers. He may be the MVP, but he ain't the best. There's some cats out there on defense.
People like Aaron Donald.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my point. So I'm the same way. You kind of gravitate towards the skill players,
right?
But Tennessee, Eric Berry was a
I
great
love me some
football
EB.
player.
He was awesome.
A great football player. And, some of the linebackers up there were great linebackers. Wide receivers were great wide. What would a Willie Gault? What would a Willie Gault done? And Anthony Hancock, and Anthony Miller. What would they have done if you were throwing the ball 50 times a game?
Josh Heupel's offense.
Yeah, we were throwing it 15 times a game.
Yeah.
And what would they have done, those offense? So it's very difficult. I usually don't even get involved when it talks about the best players because it changes.
Right.
As it went on all that long ago that the MVPs in the NFL were running backs. Now, running back, he may be fourth or fifth or sixth. They're all quarterbacks now because of the way the game's played.
Fantastic stuff, Coach. Can't wait till next week already. We got to start talking spring football. We'll do that. Don't forget, you can always catch the coach, and he's brought to you by Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Football Saturday, Big Orange Sunday as well. Get all your latest Vols news from the coach.
Enjoyed it.
We'll see you next
Appreciate
week.
it, Coach.
You bet.
Back to wrap things up next week. A top 10 list for the Vols football. I'll tell you about it. Blaine and Mickey 104.5 The Zone. How about the history lesson from Doug Mathews? How fantastic was that?
Man.
I just want to ask open-ended questions that will have
Well,
him
all
tell
you old
stories.
guys, man, I figured that'd get you going, Mickey. Yeah, I see you getting all red.
He's
and
talking about
everything.
Steve Owens winning the Heisman in
Yeah,
'69.
I'm thinking, who is that?
He goes and wins. He was a quarterback and won the Heisman, but he's a running quarterback. Then he goes to the NFL, plays for the Lions, plays tailback, wins Rookie of the Year, gets hurt.
I felt like Lucas at that point in
No,
time.
come on now.
That was before I was born.
What if I told you Vol football in a preseason top 10? Lucas, you're an alum. You like that?
I would be surprised by that.
No, it's a real thing.
No,
Certainly.
they're not in preseason top 10.
Yes, they are. And I'll
Top
tell you what.
25?
No.
Top 25, I would say so.
They're in the top 10
Well, tell
for
us who said this? Who said this?
ESPN SP Plus rankings. SP Plus. So some of you might know what that is. You super statistical people. So SEC Mike put out a graphic. I'd seen this, and then SEC Mike put it in graphic form. SP Plus, I don't know what the S and the P stand for. It's returning production plus recruiting, who you brought onto the team, plus recent history the past 2 to 4 years. That's SP Plus. That they have a formula. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. Vols are in the top 10. They are number 9.
I saw that.
Preseason 2022 rankings, ESPN SP Plus. Georgia's number 2. Alabama is number 3. Texas A&M, we're all still kind of waiting for them to take off like everybody says they're going to take off. They're number 6.
I haven't.
The Vols are number 9 on this thing. Number 9. So again, this is computers. This is not just like dudes voting. These are computers making these decisions. Returning production, recruiting, recent history. The Vols have got this magical thing returning, and I mean, maybe you don't like the Vols. Maybe you listen every day and you love the Vols. You got Hendon Hooker coming back.
Yeah, but what I'm going to get at is the expectations.
Oh, they got that too.
And the expectations are going to change. Lucas is a fan. He's a graduate and everything else. Now you're expecting more than 7. Now you want 9, 10. So can they reach that expectation? That will be interesting because, they didn't do a lot of recruiting in the portal. So that means you got to go with the guys that you're developing in your system that's been there. They're going to be younger players, inexperienced. So do you really get the same type of players, even though Hooker and Tillman and crew will be back, that you have to develop because they can't be a 2-man crew. I mean, so I think the expectations, people are going to be expecting 9, 10 wins, and I don't know if they're quite there yet. They need another recruiting class to hit that. I think. What do you think, Lucas?
Yeah, honeymoon phase will end pretty quick, right? Because last season there were next to no expectations. Right. It was 3, 4, 5 wins was the expectation. So everything else was gravy.
6 as I looked at their schedule.
Yes.
I mean, you were just saying make a bowl game, right? So they blew any expectation out of the water. So it's still sunshine and rainbows with Josh Heupel until it's not. I think it's the hard part is building off of what you did last year. Last year was the easy part, right? When the expectation is 6 wins or even 5 wins by 4 wins, then that's the easy part. But now that it's going to creep up to 7, 8, 9, yeah, that's where it gets tougher.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can get in that range. And, and you could look back at even this past season. You could say, man, we could have easily won 9 games. Hey, you could have beat Ole Miss. You could have beat Pitt.
Could have beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah, especially
Pittsburgh then went on the run of runs after that thing.
Yeah, they gained confidence there.
And the Purdue game, too. You take that into account.
Bowl game.
Boy, the Purdue game is the one you got to look at and think, okay, they got the rug pulled out under them in that one because Purdue was missing Karlaftis. They were missing a couple of receivers.
The guy's going to go first round. David Bell. He won Gatorade Player of the Year in Indiana in high school. I know who the kid is. I know his family and everything.
Didn't have that guy.
Yeah,
didn't have number 2 receiver. And then Karlaftis, who's going to be a real high
pass rusher.
Yes. Didn't have any of those cats.
So that was a slap in the face. Just when you say Tennessee, Purdue, and when you're talking about football, it should be no question that Tennessee's going to win that game. So that shows you they're not quite there yet. And Tennessee has some players missing, too, in the secondary. Taylor didn't play, so they was playing some inexperienced guys. So, it was the same on both sides. But Tennessee's supposed to win that game. So I'll be watching them closely, see if they can get over that 7-game hump and then take it to the next level, which is the tougher job, as Lucas just said.
Well, at some point soon, we'll start spring football. We can see who's doing what, but it's going to be real interesting where people set like the win total over under for the Vols next year. It's going to be real interesting because, like Lucas was saying, 4 or 5 is what a lot of national people thought. You and me both talked about 6.
6 and 6. I thought that was a no-brainer.
They got to 7. They got 7 wins, 7-6, the final record. All right, 3HL coming up next. We got to get out of here. Be careful on the way home. The rain's got water ponded everywhere, so remember, drive safe. Turn around, don't drown. Your public service announcement for today.
In the meantime, in between time.
As always, we'll see you, and
Peace.